If you're someone who believes that the NFL has it out against the Kansas City Chiefs, well, guess what? You're not wrong. Today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back to Locked On Chiefs, folks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every single day on every platform, everywhere, starting here on YouTube, where please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn your bell on so you get notifications. It actually does help let you know when something happens. We've been going through that today as well. Then get on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as any audio platform that you like, and you can get us for free 5 days a week. Plus, with that text line at 816-357-8781, you can get that much more because we're going to drop important news when it happens. First and foremost, on that text line, I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, as well as NFL33.com, where I'm going over the whole league as it builds teams right now, and RGR Football, where you can always find me there. This is my illustrious guest. It's Wednesday. That means Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com and all of the sanity he brings so that I'm not losing my mind. I love this segment because we get to go back and forth, and when I get a little, onto the sidelines, out from between the yellow lines, you have a tendency to steer me back in, and I appreciate that, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, I just want you to remember, Ryan, not everything's a conspiracy, but some things are a conspiracy.
Well, if you're not thinking, then you're not paranoid enough. That's just the way that goes. Folks, we're brought to you by Gametime.
I only got paranoid when they started plotting against me, so.
Well, yeah, that really is the turning point, isn't it? We're brought to you by Gametime. Whether you enjoy our comedy act or another one, you can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but check out Gametime. We'll tell you more about them coming up. I want to talk about the opportunity that is in front of this team starting next week, as they have some young guys that I think have a unique position to take control and make the most of themselves. We'll talk seize the days here coming up later, as well as what's going on with the defensive line. It is a unit that is going to be critical in this campaign towards a three-peat. And the three-peat got a lot harder, in my opinion, with the way the NFL took designing the schedule. Now, the full release isn't until tomorrow, folks. We'll have a wrap-up show for you and all that goodness. But today, Matt, I want to talk the first 2 weeks. It is clear to me that it's going to be a spectacle. We always knew that it was. The run for a three-peat is so unique that I think the NFL is seizing on it already. And I want to know your opinion. At first glance, it looks like by stacking what we know, the Ravens week 1 and the Bengals week 2, on paper, it looks like, hey, maybe the Chiefs really aren't the NFL's baby. Maybe they just don't like them, and they're trying to make it hard off the gate, put them in a deficit. I don't know if that's actually true in weeks 1 and 2. Who do you think has the advantage? Does the NFL really hate the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, I don't think the NFL hates Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, the fact that the Chiefs have 2 really tough games coming out of the gate and they're both at home. The home aspect would say, hey, wait a minute, you get the first 2 games at home. A lot of teams would enjoy that. Let's see what the rest of the schedule looks like, because, hey, wouldn't bother me if getting your first 2 games at home, if it means like you're finishing with 2 or 3 of your last 4 games at home as well. And ended up, when games you need them the most at the end of the season are, falling your way. Wait and see how the rest of the season then unfurls itself. I mean, the Chiefs have there's a couple of bummer games on there. I mean, there's no doubt you're going to have to bury Chiefs at Atlanta somewhere at noon deep in a programming network lineup. But for the most part, the Chiefs have a lot of marquee games this year. So, you can almost take any 2 random games and put them next to each other, and it's going to look difficult. But hey, being at home, I think, is absolutely a plus. There's no doubt about that. But, to me, it's how the rest of the schedule unfurls. Now, when you do have your first 2 at home and you only have an 8-game home schedule and 9 on the road, it does mean, hey, 9 of your last 15 games are going to be on the road. That could be tough. And it could mean that there's going to be some stretches. I mean, the NFL tries to, make sure that teams don't play a bunch of games on the road or a bunch of games at home. They like to break it up, but hey, does this mean that the Chiefs might have a tough 2-game road trip as well? I mean, could they end up with 3 in a row on the road at some point? I mean, things like that can happen. So we'll see how the schedule unfurls. But, one thing the NFL likes to do is tell storylines, and especially in the first 4 weeks of the season. And there's no doubt. I mean, I think that I felt like that there was definitely intention to get the Bengals in the front end of the schedule, and maybe with the Ravens too, because Joe Burrow's been getting hurt. He gets just beaten up by that offensive line of his. And I think they wanted to make sure that Mahomes and Burrow was Mahomes Burrow, not somebody at Mahomes and somebody else in December again. So hey, the NFL has the reasons for a lot of the things that they do. Sometimes they make sense, sometimes that they don't. I think this was absolutely a case that they're trying to get some of their best games out of the box early. Obviously, Chiefs will be the number one team opening up the season on Thursday night, and they're going to get essentially the NFL's number one programming slot at 3:25 on a Sunday afternoon against the Bengals.
And I think getting star power into the schedule early, I do like that, and it does promote the Chiefs just in terms of what this season is going to be about. The advantage, I think you kind of touched on it, is not just you will have, in all likelihood, Joe Burrow there in week 2 after having played Lamar Jackson. And maybe that isn't true if you schedule that game later in the season, but it's also the fact that Burrow's coming off of a significant injury, one that he missed a lot of time for. And so for the Chiefs, I don't know, there's really a negative here in either way. Had they played them later, he could have been hurt again. He could have had, infinite number of wide receiver problems. The running game, we'll see what happens there. I think this 1-2 punch, there's weaknesses against Baltimore, folks. If you didn't hear our show breaking that down yesterday, make sure you go check that out. And then the quarterback question with the Bengals, just gut reaction. Can they win both these games and get off to a 2-0 start?
Sure, there's no doubt. I mean, the Chiefs can. I mean, they've got them both at home. They've beaten the Ravens before. I mean, I still think that they're a tough matchup against the Ravens. If anything, I mean, I feel like that the NFL might be taking a bit of a risk in putting the Chiefs and Ravens in week 1. We are talking about the top 2 scoring defenses from last year. So you're not talking about necessarily putting on a fireworks show in week 1. I mean, could this game end up being 13-10? Yeah, it absolutely could. Could these defenses be taking some time to gel and it ends up being 38-35 and an entertaining, shootout? It absolutely could. So let's see. But I mean, the Chiefs, hey, traditionally they have been a good team in September. I mean, they've had some obvious stumbles. Going to Indianapolis was an obvious stumble. I think both these teams are going to have their attention, though. So they're not going to sleepwalk through either one of these 2 games. It's, I think, more going to be just, a little bit of how quickly does the Kansas City offense start to gel, with the changes, especially the new wide receiver, Marquise Brown, and some of the things that they're doing. I mean, how quickly can that whole group kind of get together and get on the same page, especially after last year and the offense just, really didn't feel like until the offseason that it was firing on all cylinders. How quickly can they do that this year? And then again, also, how quickly does Andy Reid want them to peak? I mean, you're not going to necessarily put your best stuff in week 1 and week 2 against the Ravens and the Bengals, knowing you may very well likely will face both those teams in January. And if you're Andy Reid, you're going to play your best stuff in January, not in September. So, I mean, hey, I give both the Ravens and the Bengals a better chance of beating the Chiefs in September than I do in January. Doesn't mean the Chiefs can't still win both those games. I'll probably pick them to win both those games because they're going to be the home team. And certainly after what happened with the Lions last year, I think that they'll be more focused this year than they were last year. So let's see what happens. But I expect the Chiefs to be favored in both those games. Can they win them both? Yes, likely. It's going to be tough.
I think it's going to be really interesting. Like you said, better early than late. Vanilla is going to be vanilla what it is in September, and that may actually work out pretty well. The question is, what's going to stop, like you said, two of the highest rated defenses to start the season? What does the D-line look? Because things are changing in Kansas City. That's coming up next on the Locked On Podcast Network. And there are plenty of things that you do need to get in the action for, because right now, this is kind of prime time. If you want to get into the action, whether it's the NBA, whether it's the NHL, right now, the Avs need a little bit of help for all you Dallas fans. Congrats. But if you want to get to those lines and get in the action right now with Dallas taking over the betting lead, you can do it all in these playoffs at FanDuel and bring your shot, the chance to make you a huge win. Right now, new customers are getting $150 back in bonus bets for winning a $5 bet. Doesn't matter if it's a prop, a money line, the spread, whether it's game 4, game 7, whatever you're looking for, you can get into the action at FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can make every single shot count. It's at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you want even more information, especially if you're looking to get in the action, check out Locked On Sports today, where you can get feeds on all the major sports from all of our local hosts 24/7 here on YouTube platform as well as Amazon Fire TV. Now, Matt, the thing that really sets apart is you're going to see two of the best defensive tackles in week one in Chris Jones and Matt Abike over in Baltimore. They both have, I think, similar sets here where they are clearly player number one on the defensive front, and a number of guys are trying to supplement them and help them out. For the Chiefs, we've seen most of the D-line group return, except for this week. We're through the rolling through of the roster that we always see this time of year. Matt Dickerson is out the door temporarily. Was that a surprise? Did that catch you off guard?
A little bit of a surprise, because normally when you see that roster turn this time of year, it really is kind of the 80 to 90 guys that kind of go back and forth. And Cole Christensen was a guy that they let go, basically just pulled back a contract offer. They had a tender offer out for him as a restricted free agent. They pulled the offer, which made him a free agent, but made him no longer count against the 90. And I wouldn't have put him in the 80 to 90 category either, but he was a guy that they dropped to make room for an undrafted free agent in the undrafted group after the draft. That's a pretty common technique that teams use, and especially the Chiefs, with kind of a wink and a nod to a veteran, say, hey, we're going to bring you back here in a day or two or a week or two. Christensen's case kind of complicated a little bit because, at the end of his NFL career, he is going to have to go back and continue his Army commitment. So to a degree, I mean, he's got some, decision making as far as when he ends his NFL career versus when he goes back to finish that. And, so Matt Dickerson's also one of those guys that you could see, hey, letting him go in exchange for bringing on an undrafted free agent and bringing him back. I mean, he's a veteran guy. Any team for the most part could have a veteran. I mean, he's one of those just kind of a guys at the end of your rotation. So yeah, could this be simply another way of, hey, letting him go, bringing back Cole? We've seen, it wasn't under this regime necessarily, but we've seen that the Chiefs, share roster spots before. Where players will maybe be signed one week and release the other and basically share a roster spot. Is that what Cole Christensen and Matt Dickerson are going to do right now? I don't know. Does that mean it's into Matt Dickerson's career in Kansas City? Not necessarily, because you feel like, if there's an injury or an undrafted player is not working out, Matt Dickerson could be back in a heartbeat.
And I think that's kind of where I'm at, because I had him penciled in as top 6 easy, probably top 5 with the absence of Charles Omenihu. And I still do count him kind of an inside guy first. He can go out to edge, obviously. But we're talking Chris Jones, Derek Nottie, starting duo that's been here for quite a bit. A little surprised that Mike Pennell is on board already, a little bit early in the season for signing him. But he and Turk Wharton as the primary backups. I had Dickerson right in with Neil Farrell right after that. And I felt that it was all kind of, it could happen one way or the other. Now it's Farrell. It's the rookie Lovett, who I think it deserves a lot of runway to try to see what he can get up to. He is wearing number 99, folks. Check that out. And the mystery player in Isaiah Buggs. Do you see that Dickerson should make it back, given what is left behind the top 4, and with Omenihu likely to start on the pup week 1?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me because I think that, and hey, it's way too early to make some roster spots, but when I'm charting out my top 4 defensive tackles on this team right now, I mean, I'm including Fabian Lovett in there. I think it would be very difficult for the Chiefs letting a guy like that hit waivers, because I don't think he would clear waivers. So I think you have to pencil him in as one of their top 4 defensive tackles right now. And then it's a question of what do you do with that 5th spot? I mean, I think it's pretty likely that, Mike Pennell ends up playing the same kind of role he did last year, and because he's a veteran, you can get away with that because you don't have to put a Mike Pennell on waivers. He could stay with you all through training camp, just, get the work in that he needs to. You can release him during the cut down, sign him to the practice squad, and just wait until the back end of the season when you need his, 34 years of experience on this planet. I don't think Mike Pennell wants to or needs to be playing a 2021 game season. So, That's kind of luxury you've got of maybe having him, stashed on the practice squad until you need him. But Matt Dickerson can be one of those guys too. So, yeah, I mean, maybe he is the odd man out right now. Maybe he does come back. Maybe injuries make it, more likely to comes back sooner than later, excuse me. But I mean, that's at least one spot where, even though I don't feel like that the Chiefs are still super deep at that spot, they're at least comfortable with their depth. I mean, it could absolutely be challenged with an injury or two. But they like what they've got. And yeah, I mean, if you're talking about your fifth defensive tackle either being Dickerson or Buggs or Pennell, and then you've got another one of those guys as a sixth or a seventh on the practice squad, I mean, Chiefs won a Super Bowl essentially with that same rotation last year. So it's not a bad setup.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Buggs would fit into that category as well, as he would be immediately a free agent, right? And you can do that.
I believe he would, yes.
Okay, that's my thought as well. So, folks, the differentiation being here that Farrell and Lovett would have to clear waivers should you let them go, and then you're probably in the wind as far as that goes. That makes a lot of sense. And obviously, with Amenahue coming back and Mike Dana then having two guys that can also come inside and give you reps that we've seen in the past and still be able to rotate on the outside, hopefully Felix Anudike-Uzomah's ready to claim some of those reps and just, as a whole, reinforce the entire defensive front. I feel like in terms of experience and a little bit of athleticism as a whole, this defensive front unit is on par, if not better than last season's. That really was the catalyst that they're going to need again to protect the secondary. Are you feeling pretty solid about where they're at?
Well, I mean, I think you have to feel pretty solid. I mean, if anything, I mean, I think that there's maybe a little bit of concern about maybe too much continuity. Because there's absolutely one thing in the NFL that's consistent, and the Chiefs have been a great example of that through their Super Bowl runs, is that you got to keep getting younger and have turnover. I mean, they are still relatively young in that front four, but they've got some age, and they're essentially bringing back everybody this year. I mean, it's not like a lot of turnover, but there's also not a lot of fresh faces. If anything, I mean, you're just really talking about maybe losing some snaps from Charles Omenihu early and getting more snaps from a Felix Anudike-Uzomah throughout the season. I mean, that's really what you're talking about swapping out for. That from just a big picture 30,000 foot view, I think could be a worry in the sense that, a lot of teams usually like to have fresh faces come in there because younger guys push the older guys. There's always going to be an older guy that maybe just doesn't have it anymore. And, now is maybe slipping in the rotation, or you just need to move on from. I mean, that happens, but there's no doubt. I mean, the Chiefs, as far as the front four has gone, has been run it back. I mean, everybody is back, and they didn't really bring in any, fresh new faces for that to really challenge anybody. I mean, not as far as, dedicating, significant resources. So I have a little bit of concern there, but it's they chose, they had a choice between you do that on the offensive line or the defensive line. And certainly I think that they felt like, hey, if we need to introduce some new blood and new faces, it needs to be on the offensive line. And that was where they had their opportunities this year.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And it's about taking advantage of when you get that opportunity. So they're not alone. There are other players that need to seize that opportunity. Who will that be in OTAs? That's coming up next here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So it comes down to this. Whether it's the Ravens in week one or whatever they do with the rest of the schedule, it's going to be a challenge this season. And it does make it more difficult to get tickets when you want to be on the field, in the stands, whatever you're looking for Ravens, Bengals, Raiders. It's going to be a lot of matchups, and there's an easy way to take control and make sure that you're getting the most out of it, whether it's you're all in pricing, so you know every single cent you're going to have to spend, and there's no surprises, whether it's the deal in the zone of the stadium that you want to sit in. Tickets at Arrowhead are always a little bit hard to come by, and around the rest of the league, things aren't that much easier. So if you want the view that you're going to sit in and a guaranteed price for up to 110% of the credit, check out Gametime. All you have to do is download the app and make sure that you sign up, create your account, use our code LOCKEDONNFL, and you're going to get $20 off of your first purchase. It is obviously about football tickets for me, but it can be theater and comedy and everything else that we go through. It's at Gametime. Get that app and use our code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL. for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms do apply, but download it, put it on there. It's last-minute tickets. It's lowest prices, and it is, thankfully, guaranteed. Another thing that is guaranteed is that you're going to get 24/7 sports coverage on everything major that's going on Locked On Sports today. You can get that here on YouTube or on Amazon Fire TV. What's on fire for me is opportunity. Get your engine going and take every chance that you can to make this team. What I want to pick your brain about, and you mentioned one guy that I'm encouraged to hear, but OTA start next week. There's going to be some opportunities there to take some snaps, to show what you can do, to show that you can learn and that you've progressed since rookie minicamp. Who lines up for you as somebody that is in position to seize that opportunity?
Well, we talked about Fabian Lovett on the defensive line, and that's a guy that definitely jumps out. I mean, I'm kind of referring to him as the 8th round draft pick because he's the guy that I think of that undrafted class obviously has the best potential, I think, to make the roster. Looked really impressive in the mini camp. I mean, as far as much as you can tell from, the defensive and offensive lines when you can't hit each other and there's no pads. Got to see him go through the drills up close and personal on the indoor practice. And he just does everything right. He looks the part. He's got good size, good speed across the board. I was really surprised that he went undrafted. I mean, so for the Chiefs to be able to land him, I think it does feel like an extra draft pick. There's several opportunities, though, to make this team. And, running back is one of those spots that there's definitely going to be an opportunity. There's, going to be and she's had a lot of different options there. I mean, obviously there's a lot of excitement about Louis Rees-Zammit. Like, gosh, can't believe I butchered that name so badly.
LRZ works just fine for me.
LRZ works great too. Maybe I have to lean on that one, but there's a lot of excitement around him, but there's so many question marks, as far around him too. But, the Chiefs probably need a little bit of more speed in that room. So that's where Rees-Zammit fits in. But there's maybe one other spot in that running back room and 3 or 4 candidates. And there's some veterans in there too. But I thought Amani Bailey from TCU looked really good in the mini camp. Carson Steele, if the Chiefs want a fullback option. And there's a couple of veterans in there too that could really compete for a job. Cornerback's another spot where the Chiefs obviously find, good guys. Miles Battle just looks huge on a football field. I mean, I think he's listed at 6'3", and he looks every bit the part of 6'3". Ridiculous length. If, Dave Merritt can coach him up, I mean, there's a found piece right there. I know a couple of names that the Chiefs are definitely, really intrigued about. One of them is the kid from Marshall, the offensive lineman, Ethan Driscoll. Really interested in him. I mean, that's a guy that, once again, probably could have gotten drafted. Incredible size. He's like 6'8". Really interested to see him, especially when the pads come on. I think is when, you're either going to, start hearing his name or not. And the punter battle. I mean, I think that the assumption when you sign a guy with the nickname Punt God is that he's going to win the punting job. But Ryan Reckow, the undrafted rookie free agent from BYU, absolutely impressed. I mean, his kicks were just about as big as Ariza's were during the mini camp. Had good hang time, everything. I mean, when I was watching those guys, I was trying to see if I could tell which one was punting by just the ball flight, just to see if I could really tell the difference between Ariza and Reckow, and I couldn't tell a difference. I mean, they both were evenly kicking, and that's one of the names I hear the most when the Chiefs are talking about this undrafted rookie class and who stands out. We'll see if any of the receivers can kind of compete. I was impressed with Jaron Hayek. Who was one of the tryout players, the only tryout player that they signed. Now, does he face a long, battle? Yeah. I mean, he's at the bottom of the list right now, but he's at least got a chance, and he seemed to catch everything that was coming his way. We need to see that continue when OTAs start. But that would give him a good head start towards training camp if he can.
Well, I hope that somebody can take advantage. It's a unique opportunity. And if you guys want more background or information on who's out there right now that has a chance to stick, you can check out ChiefsDigest.com, where Matt runs everything on covering this beat, as well as Chiefs Digest here on YouTube. You can watch his videos as well. Does a Q&A just like I do. We appreciate that, Matt, because, sometimes we have questions. So thank you for your time and setting us straight. Appreciate you being back, dude.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure, Ryan. Take care, my friends.
Folks, one more week till OTAs. We appreciate you being with us. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell. Hit us on Spotify as well as Apple Music and get the audio version because it's summertime. You're going to be on the go a little bit more. So, hey, take advantage of it. Check out Chiefs Digest. Thanks for spending it with us today. Schedule drop is coming. We're going to have full reaction and run it down for you. Don't miss that. Thanks for being with us.